to talk about Israel-Palestine. I just have a couple things about Israel-Palestine that have happened over the week that I just want to talk about and shoot out.
Sure.
Obama threw his hat in the ring. Obama was on Pod Save America, our number one competitor.
We're their number one competitor.
Yeah, we're their number one competitor.
Yeah.
And he said some things that are obviously true, but I think are very Obama-esque.
Oh, yeah.
He says, what Hamas did was horrific, and there's no justification for it. And what is also true is that the occupation and what's happening to Palestinians is unbearable. A true statement, but it's very Obama-esque to very, very succinctly and cleanly and non-controversially outline the problem in a way that absolutely nobody could disagree with.
Yep.
And then propose basically no solution except to get along.
Yep. Exactly.
That's the Obama playbook, man.
Absolutely.
Say absolutely nothing, but sound like the nicest guy in the room.
Yeah. Sound like the most charismatic guy around and help nobody.
And that's what it is. And it's annoying that this guy was president for 8 years. And so it's so frustrating to me. Maybe this is something I need to get over and I just have to learn to live with. But it's so frustrating to me to see a former president talk about so many things that are wrong when he was literally the president and didn't do the things that he's saying others should do.
Yes. I think it's almost easier for him because the narrative about his presidency is so solidly, I was blocked on everything.
Yeah.
Like, everybody knows that. I believe it to be true.
Of course it is.
It is true, but it's still frustrating.
But foreign policy is the one area where the president has all the authority.
You're pretty much unilaterally.
And so if you wanted to fix some Israeli-Palestine stuff, why didn't you do something after the 2008 invasion of Gaza and November 4th? Why didn't you do something in the after the 2014? You did something after the 2014 war, but it wasn't enough, obviously. You know, you didn't sit down and have this conversation that you want to have so bad then.
Yeah.
So it's just annoying to hear Obama say that, to be honest. It just is.
Yeah.
You know, I'm glad he's saying that because it's the right thing to say. I just wish he would have said it a decade ago. You know?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I don't even care because it doesn't move the needle for anyone.
Nobody.
Because no Republican, no Israel supporter gives a shit.
No.
This doesn't change their idea that they don't really care what's happening to the Palestinians. And it doesn't do anything to move anyone in the middle towards a more solid view, like in favor of the Palestinians or what the U.S. should do to try to influence Israel or anything like that.
Well, because he doesn't even say what the U.S. should do.
No.
His only prescription is to get in the room and start talking.
Yeah.
That's like not...
Like, we're there. Like, we're doing it.
Yeah, like that's kind of what's been happening over the last 75 years, man.
That is the most obvious, like, lowest common denominator action that anyone could take or think to take.
And it's just so frustrating because, yes, he's a charismatic guy and all that, and he definitely spoke well. But you read stuff like that, and he just says nothing very well.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? He has the best ability to say absolutely nothing while saying a lot of words.
Yep.
Ugh. All right. Next, Iran.
Iran. There you go.
I'm learning, guys.
Yep.
I'm learning.
Slowly but surely.
One of our first videos, I said Iran, and obviously it was a great video, but all the comments were just making fun of me for how I pronounced Iran.
Yeah, and now I got to correct you every time I hear it.
And it saved me later on.
Yeah.
So Iran has threatened to attack the United States. An Iranian official has issued a direct threat to the U.S. They've said Iran... Oh, fuck.
Instantly. You're right back.
All right. Oh, God. Directed the U.S. Iran cannot just watch the situation as a bystander. If the scope of war expands, heavy losses will be inflicted on the United States. That is such a bold statement to come from an Iranian official.
That's so blustery and so unbelievable.
Unbelievable.
Literally unbelievable. Like that's not going to happen.
No, obviously they're not going to attack mainland United States.
No.
But they can attack U.S. troops positioned in the region. And that's what has been happening over the last few days.
I see.
So America has some forces stationed in Iraq and Syria. I'm not even going to pretend I know how many. I don't know, but they have them there. I tried to do some research on it, but I think it's kind of par for the course that they don't really want you to know how many are in there.
Yeah.
Obviously. So there have been 38 attacks linked to Iranian-backed groups since October 7th.
Wow.
So that's a little more than one a day.
Yeah.
Right? The U.S. forces are present on... So why are the U.S. forces even there? The U.S. forces are present on the ground specifically to defeat ISIS. We know we don't talk about ISIS anymore, but there is still an ISIS resurgent group that if the United States wasn't present, would very quickly take over some villages.
Yeah, sounds like an Afghanistan situation.
It is an Afghanistan situation. We're stuck there forever. It's going to be how it is, unfortunately. Yeah. I don't think there's... The Iraqi security forces will never have the capacity to fight back against ISIS, and neither will Assad, as he's still clamoring and having fights internally with the Syrian government there, right? Well, he is the Syrian government, but you know what I mean. He's still...
Yeah, there's still civil war.
Yeah, there's still civil war going on there, so he doesn't have the real capacity. So they're there to help Iraq battle the remnants of the Islamic State and handle any more resurgencies that come out. Other geopolitical commentators that do have some respect suggest that these troops are present only to deter Iran, that the threat of an ISIS resurgence is overblown, and that the U.S. only has soldiers there to deter Iran from making headway into Iraq and Syria. Yeah. I think I could buy that.
I think it's both, because I think Iran is aligned with ISIS to some extent, like it is with Hamas and Hezbollah.
They're different sects of Islam.
Yes, they're different sects, but so is Hamas.
Yes.
Like they're different sects, but the bigger issue at hand is countering Western influence.
True.
Specifically the US and Israel. So
I got to challenge you a little bit, because Iran did do a lot to fight ISIS in the heyday.
Okay.
They did. Remember that general Trump killed Soleimani? Do you remember that story? Soleimani fought a lot of ISIS.
Okay.
Yeah, he killed a lot of ISIS guys.
Okay.
He did a lot of work with that. But I do think now these resurgence, Iran is taking advantage of their, what's the word I'm looking for? They just have like no hope, right? And so Iran is kind of taking advantage of that.
Okay. Yeah. Well, my understanding is like the Arab population and the Arab countries in the Middle East generally they're not fans specifically of Hamas because they are different sects.
Oh yeah.
But it's kind of, they've decided the devil they know, the devil they're a little bit closer to, a little bit more ideologically aligned with, and which is less powerful.
Yeah.
And that's the biggest thing.
Yeah, that's the biggest thing.
Yeah.
So the United States has suffered 38 related attacks to Iranian-backed groups, and Tehran is not specifically involved in the planning of these attacks. There's no evidence to say, oh, Tehran told them to bomb U.S. in this area at this time. That doesn't appear to be the case, but it does seem to appear that Iran is encouraging them.
Okay.
Giving them money, giving them weapons.
Sure.
And so in these 38 attacks, 40 minor injuries have occurred, and 10 U.S. soldiers have traumatic brain injury from it.
Okay.
So how long can that go on without a U.S. retaliation is the question.
Probably a while. I think the U.S. and the Biden administration are very invested in preventing the expansion of this conflict.
No, I agree with that. But I do think it's a bad look for 38 more attacks to happen next month, and for the United States not to bomb the hell out of these groups that are stationed in Iraq with the Iranian backing. Maybe that's the hawk in me.
No,
I don't know.
I get that. It's hard because now I feel like I'm in the weak position of not liking either.
Right.
I don't. You feel like you need to attack to retaliate, because otherwise the attacks will keep happening. But also, if you attack to retaliate, then the attacks from the other side will just grow.
Yes.
So it's not like it's solving the problem.
Yes.
But it also just feels wrong to not do anything.
Yeah, it's a really complicated situation. I definitely agree. I don't know how much popular support these Iranian-backed groups have in these Shia areas of Iraq. I don't know how much public support they have. I think it's a little different with Hamas and like Taliban in Afghanistan, because they did share an okay amount of popular support.
Okay.
Right? So maybe there's a little bit of a difference in that regard. But I don't know the right answer. But I do think it's not good that U.S. troops are getting bombed by Iranian troops. And the Biden administration is stuck between a rock and a hard place because they don't want to escalate too much, because escalation could mean a big war.
Yeah.
And we have two carrier groups in the Red Sea and one in the Mediterranean Sea. We're stationed there pretty hardcore.
Yeah.
And I think that has done a lot to deter further expansion of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict into
Really?
other Arab countries. Oh, yeah. I think it has. I think it kind of deterred, and I'm not saying Jordan had a lot of capacity for war, but I think it deterred Assad from Syria from getting interested in expansion.
Really?
Yeah.
I just thought Assad was too occupied
He might have
with
been.
military conflict. And the thing is, Yemen declared war on Israel.
Yes.
Right? So I'm not sure. I do just worry more about escalation.
No,
I worry
I
that
know.
them being there means that it's that much easier for a spark to kind of cause a bigger explosion.
No, I know what you mean. I know what you mean. I am in favor of sending the carrier groups. I think it was the right decision.
Okay.
If it does escalate, I'll eat my words, but we'll see.
Okay.
But now I want to talk about something, the responses on this show that we've been getting a little bit, because I think it's interesting.
Okay.
We've posted a lot of videos on the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, and I think our coverage has been very balanced. Ben and I have a lot of sympathy for the Palestinian side of the conflict. There's no doubt about it. I don't want to speak for you, but I mean, I think you're in favor of a two-state solution.
Yeah.
Generally, right?
I
mean, and I am in favor of a two-state solution. I think what Israel has done in the West Bank and in Gaza is wrong, and the blockade of Gaza is wrong.
Yep.
The settler movements into the West Bank are wrong. The retaliation strategy of Israel just bombing the hell out of Gaza City is wrong.
Yeah.
Those things are wrong, but it doesn't mean we have to blindly accept every move that the Palestinians make and say that all of these moves were the right moves. Killing 1,400 civilians on October 7th was extremely wrong. And we get a lot of hate when we make videos and when we talk about Hamas and how bad Hamas is. And we got a lot of Palestinians in our comments, or Palestinian supporters in our comment section, saying that we're mischaracterizing the issue. Watch our full video. We most certainly are not mischaracterizing the issue.
No.
It's just not as black and white as you think it is from watching your TikTok feed.
Yeah. I read a Times article today that I think provides some really good context for this, where they got in touch with some of the leaders of Hamas and got context from the horses' mouths of why this attack, why now. And they specifically cited events like the rise of attacks in the West Bank, the Israeli military invasion and attack on the Al-Aqsa Mosque in Jerusalem.
Yeah.
And how they noticed that basically the Israeli apartheid of Palestinian people was advancing further and further, that Palestinians were becoming kind of more okay with it just because it was the way of life, and that the Palestinian Authority was always governing under the Israeli authorities, but was okay with that and was negotiating with them and ready to work with them. And Hamas, basically, they were driven to do this attack because they were worried that the Palestinian cause was fading, right? And they said they needed military action to galvanize it and to make it more of an issue at the forefront of people's minds. And I'm not saying this to give credibility to the Hamas attack. Instead, I'm saying Israel absolutely had a role to play because of their mistreatment of Palestinians, and the response by Hamas was absolutely unjustified, because even with that treatment of Palestinians, the fact that Hamas was looking for violence, they were looking for a change to the situation, for something to quote unquote wake people up, right, and have them more alert and ready to fight. How disgusting is it that they are willing to pay the price of 10,000 civilians just to change how people feel about the situation?
Yep.
That's horrific. And that's exactly what they said to reporters.
They wanted more of their citizens to die.
Yes.
So that more of them would want to fight Israel.
Yes. there isn't a good guy, and we've said this for each of the past 2 episodes that we talked about this. Israel is not the good guy. Hamas is not the good guy. There is blame to go around to both sides in this conflict. And I'm sorry if you're looking for someone to be more one or the other on it. That's just not how it is.
Yeah, that's not how we're going to be. We're not going to lie to you.
No. And so I think it's not what you can see in a TikTok. It's not something that can really be explained and completely summed up within 30 or 60 seconds, or at least not in a way that you can unilaterally decide this is all Hamas's fault, or this is all Israel's fault.
Yeah, you can learn bits and pieces of the story from watching TikToks and stuff. That's fine, but you cannot fit in the entirety of the conflict into 30 seconds and 60 seconds. I'm sorry, you can't.
No, which is why we talked about it for like an hour on our last episode or 2 episodes ago.
Yeah. So now I want to talk about something that's been happening a lot more recently. Israel is expanding into the West Bank very fast after October 7th. They are arming their settlers, and it's causing a lot of Palestinians in the West Bank to suffer. Keep in mind, the attack from October 7th occurred from Hamas that is only stationed in Gaza, that is not touching the West Bank, okay? Please keep that in mind. The people of the West Bank had nothing to do with October 7th. So now I'm going to tell a little story about Bilal Muhammad Saleh. He was a Palestinian sidewalk vendor of sage and thyme. He went out with his family to pick some olives. 4 armed Jewish settlers showed up, witnesses said. They started yelling, and the olive pickers stopped what they were doing and began to run. 2 gunshots rang out, and in an instant, Mr. Saleh, who was known for his love of fresh leaves and being a fun dad, was face down in the olive grove, dead. He was killed by these Jewish settlers. And this is not uncommon. Since October 7th, settler violence has displaced nearly 1,000 Palestinians, including entire herding communities. There have been 130 Palestinians killed since October 7th, per the United Nations, by the Israeli military and Israeli armed settlers. And this is just going to encourage so much more violence and so much more terrorism.
Yeah.
It's fucking disgusting. And this is not solving anything.
This is the type of thing that makes me wonder how Israeli government really felt about the attack.
Yeah.
This is the type of thing that's like, could they have known it was coming? We talked about how Israeli intelligence is absolutely top of the line. And it's crazy that they didn't know about an attack that killed 1,400 Israelis.
I know. I'm not going to go into conspiracy. I don't want to do that.
I suppose not. But it's like, I don't know, that it does seem like they enable this. They've been enabling it for a long time. And we know that Israel is motivated to have the entirety of the territory of the West Bank and Jerusalem to themselves. So I don't know. It is conspiracy, and there is no evidence that there are direct ties here and that this is a government plot, but it does all align.
Yeah. I'm doing a weird thing right now. I'm like reading a lot of the Bible here. And in Genesis, God promises the Israelites the land from the Egyptian sea to the Euphrates. Mm-hmm. And he promises this land to them. And so there is a hardcore religious element to the settlers who go on the front lines into the West Bank, who truly believe that God promised us this land all the way to the Jordan River, and they need to create greater Israel and conquer and hold the land of Canaan as God promised them. That is a massive element to this. And the ones who are believing that so intensely are the ones who are settling in the West Bank, picking up a gun given to the Israelis by the United States, and then shooting an olive picker and a sidewalk vendor in the middle of the West Bank.
Yeah.
It's insane. And obviously Palestinian attacks are rising in the West Bank as well. There have been 23 Israeli civilians who have died. Extremist settlers, Zionists into the West Bank have been attacking Palestinian homes, businesses, blowing up their generators and solar panels, burning down their tents of semi-nomadic herders, and even shooting people. These semi-nomadic herders are like centuries old family lines, right? Like that's what we're talking about here. Like centuries old family lineages of nomadic tribes people who are doing their thing, herding their sheep or whatever they do. I don't know. And then just getting shot at with a M4. I mean, it's just nuts.
Yeah.
It's nuts.
It's tragic.
It's nuts. The Israelis have been also leaving leaflets around the West Bank, trying to warn or threaten Palestinian people there. So this is what an Israeli flyer was left on a bunch of Palestinian cars. A great catastrophe will descend upon your head soon. We will destroy every enemy and expel you forcibly from our holy land that God has written for us. Wherever you are, carry your loads immediately and leave to where you came from. We are coming for you. This is insanity. So all the people who are blindly supporting Israel, the Israeli state funds these people. The Israeli state arms these people.
The government spews rhetoric that encourages them.
Absolutely encourages them. Absolutely encourages. The IDF specifically recruits settlers to join militia organizations. Yeah. They with the explicit goal of erasing all of Gaza from the face of the earth. Oh, this is what I wanted to say. This is perfect. So, Galit Distel Atabiran, she is a member of the Israeli Knesset in Benjamin Netanyahu's party. This is what she said on Twitter recently. Erasing all of Gaza from the face of the earth. That the Gazan monsters will fly to the southern fence and try to enter Egyptian territory, or they will die. Is that not the most genocidal rhetoric you've ever heard?
Saying what's supposedly the quiet part out loud.
It's just what they literally want the entirety of the Gazan population to die. That's what she specifically says.
It's so...
Where's the fucking humanity here?
Yeah, it's non-existent. And I mean, the one thing I will say as far as, because it is just so hard to talk about this when we're trying on this show to talk about problems and talk about how we can fix them, right? And so that brings me to, there has been a lot of reporting on how the Biden administration and Anthony Blinken have been pushing hard for pauses in the violence to get humanitarian aid into Gaza and to allow more people to get out. But Israel keeps pushing back, and Netanyahu keeps tweeting and making public statements that a ceasefire is equivalent to surrender to Hamas, that they can't stop their fighting unless Israeli hostages are released. No matter what the U.S. does or says, it's not slowing them down at all. And so I don't know. That's when we first learned about this conflict, like that's what felt like the clearest potential solution, right? Is something that we could impose on Israel because we have some influence with them, but it's not doing anything.
It's not doing anything. Israel has gone full in on the invasion of Gaza. They have split Gaza City from the southern part officially.
Yeah.
They have made their way to the sea, and they're currently closing in on Gaza City. They've broken through a lot of the suburbs, and now the fighting is about to get extremely intense. We're talking about areas that have a higher population density than the most urban parts of Paris and London.
Yeah.
That's how dense this fighting is going to be. The civilian casualties are going to be insane, and the IDF casualties are going to be insane too.
Yeah.
It's going to be really hard for Israel to do this invasion. This is not going to be easy.